Too old.
Derby Heights, I'm here with these three troublemakers, Amanda Spears, Zach Laws, and Marcus James Dixon. And we're here to talk about the best comedy guest acting category. It's a perler. It's a really good one because we've got basically three shows representing with 6 nominations. So that's interesting. We're going to be talking a lot about vote splitting, I assume. But let's just go through who's nominated first, and then I'm going to go straight to Marcus James. And so Riz Ahmed for Girls, Dave Chappelle for Saturday Night Live, Tom Hanks for Saturday Night Live, Hugh Laurie for Veep, Lin-Manuel Miranda for Saturday Night Live, and Matthew Rhys for Girls. So 2 girls, 3 Saturday Night Lives, and a Veep. Marcus, who's going to win?
You know who should have won was Peter McNichol, because the Academy ripped his Emmy nomination out of his hands last year. Sorry.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't get in yesterday is really, really criminal and painful, and I hate that.
With our help, we ripped the Emmy
Thanks,
nomination.
Riley.
But now that he's not in the race, it kind of opens it up, and I think maybe his co-star Hugh Laurie actually has a really good shot. I think he's been nominated 10 times now without a win. And the fact that he's alone in this category without another Veep guy maybe stealing votes really, really helps him out. He also had a really great episode. I mean, the episode was called Blurb. He had a great scene with Julia, fighting back and forth. There was all that sexual tension. It was good. He deserves to win.
I agree. I think this has got to be Hugh Laurie. If he can't win this year, then he just might never win an Emmy. I can't believe I have to say that Hugh Laurie has never won an Emmy before. He should have been nominated for Veep last year in the supporting actor category. He was fantastic in The Night Manager. It's too bad that he had to go up against Sterling K. Brown and OJ, or else I think he would have won for that. I think, we're going to talk a lot about vote splitting in a lot of these videos. And I think that
it's our new drinking game.
Right, yeah. In this case, I mean, so if there was one of these guys from Saturday Night Live who really stood out,
yeah, good question,
I think they might have an edge. But the fact that Tom Hanks, Dave Chappelle, and Lin-Manuel Miranda all had very highly talked about episodes, they're going to be pulling votes away from each other.
Okay,
well, let me
go ahead.
Same thing with Girls too. I mean, Girls, Matthew Rhys and Riz Ahmed can be rewarded in other categories, so they might not even register here. I think with 17 nominations, Veep could do a little bit of damage this year. I think this is an award that it could pick up.
Yeah, Amanda.
Yeah, I disagree as far as the SNL people are concerned, because I think sketch for sketch, cold opening, maybe Dave Chappelle wins monologue, but I think Tom Hanks is the choice. He had the best episode of the year, in my opinion, as far as SNL is concerned. And frankly, it was an iconic, he gave us an iconic character.
What, David S. Pumpkins?
Black Jeopardy.
That's who we're talking about, right? David S. Pumpkins.
Yeah, he gave us a great Black Jeopardy. He poked fun at his son's television show.
Yeah.
I love that. I was like, I wish
he was so good in Saturday Night Live. I would probably even give him my own award. But I think what Zach's trying to argue, and I think I agree with both of you, but because Lin-Manuel and Dave both did really, really, they were very talked about episodes as well. Every episode of Saturday Night Live pretty much has been a really good one because of the Trump factor. And it's going to be difficult for voters to split them out.
See, I kind of disagree, because I think as good as Lin-Manuel Miranda's episode was, they were trying to shoehorn him into some of these. His was not, I think his status helps him, but I think his was maybe the weakest of the 3. Dave Chappelle's had some good moments, but he's almost overshadowed by Kate McKinnon in his episode. Because remember, this is the Kate McKinnon Hallelujah moment,
right?
Where I think Tom Hanks was front and center his entire episode. And keep in mind, he's never won an acting Emmy award. with
But he
all of
has-
his Emmys, but he's never been nominated for, and he's never won an acting Emmy. So he might take this.
But he's got 7 Emmys on his shelf, and Hugh Laurie does not have a single one. So
Yeah, and I agree with
if,
you.
if you're trying to argue that somebody is overdue, I'm sorry, I've got to
I'm
argue.
not saying he's overdue. I'm just saying he's never been nominated. I'm just throwing that out there as a fact.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Listen, I wrote up the whole thing about Tom Hanks' Emmy history yesterday for the Oscar winners in the Emmy race. So, yes, I hear you on that.
I do agree with you as far as Hugh Laurie is concerned. And this seems like the kind of dickish thing they would do is to finally give him an award and it be non-televised. So he's not going to get to give his acceptance speech. He's not going to get his big John Hamm standing ovation as he finally gets up there on the stage.
Amy Poehler, she finally won last year and didn't. She could have been there to accept it, but she chose not to, Amy.
Well, if you've been nominated 17 times, she gave a really great reason for not being there. And I thought you turkeys were screwing with me again. Like, yeah, that's a great.
So,
but I agree with you. If Hugh Laurie can't win this year, don't bother showing up the next time because it's not.
The perfect storm.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. But I need to ask you all a question. It's completely changing the subject. Why does Girls do so well in the guest categories? We've got Riz Ahmed and we've got Matthew Rhys, both nominated, by the way, in other categories in drama and limited series acting. And Riz Ahmed could win, possibly, for the night of. Matthew Rhys is going to struggle a bit to win lead actor in a drama for the Americans. But they're both nominated here. Just like Peter Scolari was last year, and Peter McNichol, which that whole debacle with him, I feel so. He must be at home, by the way, and I'm going off on a tangent again. He must be at home just thinking, what the hell did I do wrong? I got a nomination. They ripped it away from me.
He didn't do anything wrong. What happened is Veep didn't give him enough to do in that episode. He had one scene, and it really, frankly wasn't as memorable as the scene that got him cut from last year's Emmys.
True.
Or he
And it aired
throws
so
that phone
late.
down.
Yeah.
It aired so late that, I think voting was going on when the episode aired, so people may have
It
already
was.
turned in their ballot.
It was at the end of voting. It was
So I think
really close.
that's. I think the Veep writers and producers, if they really wanted Peter to get back in, they could have written another episode for him, maybe 2 more, and have him earlier in the season. But still, he was great in his one scene. I mean, look, Margot Martindale won 2 Emmys for being in 2 scenes drinking coffee.
In a cafe, yeah.
And with much less fouler language.
Yeah, and because Margot Martindale makes the argument, I've had the pleasure of speaking to her. She's so funny, but she says that a lot of people in the Academy vote by just they think in their head what that person has done over the seasons, and that they like the character, and they don't necessarily think, oh, I was in a cafe for 30 seconds and that's all I did for the whole season, and therefore I shouldn't win the award. So they liked Claudia from The Americans. They thought of her in season 1 and 2. I think the season 1 was where she did most of that work, and therefore she was winning awards. And the same thing could have happened for Peter McNichol, and the same thing can certainly happen for Hugh Laurie because he's been in the show for a while.
That actually disproves Hugh Laurie, because why wasn't he nominated before?
Well,
why was he not in
always
last
been in
year?
supporting though, right?
Yeah,
He
but
wasn't
why?
supporting you.
yeah,
Why
it's so
couldn't
much
he get in
easier to be
last year?
nominated here. It's easier to be
Well,
nominated
you know what?
guest.
Yeah, but
I'll bet you he did get a lot of votes. I mean, because he got nominated for The Night Manager. It's not as if they were like unaware that Hugh Laurie was around and working. I think it's just the thing about the thing about Veep is that you can fill the entire comedy supporting actor category with people from Veep. And we saw Matt Walsh
doesn't bother
get
them. That doesn't bother them.
exactly.
They could have
But,
put 3 in there. They can't get. Why can't they get him in? Why couldn't they get him in?
I will
they
say
got
this:
him in-
like guest stars that are in too many episodes and have to go supporting, they never get in. I mean, Alec Baldwin is one rare example, but I mean, this role has just been around for 2 or 3 years now, but we haven't really seen somebody who's billed as a guest star on the show that has to go supporting on the ballot and then gets nominated. It doesn't factor into their minds. Like when they think of supporting people on Veep, they don't think of Hugh Laurie. Who does?
That's
Nobody.
possible.
Yeah, I think that's a very good argument, actually. Yeah,
He wasn't in the first few seasons.
Thank you.
you did good. So
He wants to end the chat now.
yeah, there's something else I want to talk about with this particular category, and you can scream at me if I'm wrong. Probably am. When I looked at the ballot a few days ago before the nominations, I thought to myself, this category is a little light on compared to some of the others. I was running out of options when I was doing my own fake Emmy ballot. Like, who would I nominate if I had to pick 6? I just felt there wasn't. It was these nominations are good, and there's probably 2 or 3 that could probably missed out. But I just didn't think it's a very competitive group this year for some reason. Do you all agree? And if not, then who missed out?
John Hamm, I think, missed out. He was hilarious in that first episode of Kimmy Schmidt. He really, really, as his Reverend Crazy Town, I don't know what his character's name is, but trying to get Kimmy to sign those divorce papers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think he definitely was the one that missed out. And frankly, I think Aziz Ansari should have replaced Lin-Manuel Miranda, because I thought he was
great.
From start to finish, really, really strong throughout his episode.
Anyone else?
I don't know if this is a weak category, but I never really like when shows dominate with 2 or 2 is fine, but 3 is I mean, I'm sure we could have cut out one of these guys and no one would have really cared, but
yeah,
I don't know if it's weak. There's definitely 3 strong performances here. I'm not going to say which one.
I'm with you. I think, for the most part, it's a fine category. It's actually one of the categories I got the most correct in my predictions. So maybe that shows you. I think I had Peter McNichol in there as well, and maybe Aziz Ansari. So that's probably about the breadth of the snubs here in this category.
Well, I think Lin-Manuel Miranda for me was the biggest surprise. I just wasn't expecting him to be nominated, and Dave Chappelle as well. Even though he has he has this mystique about him. He's been nominated at the Emmys for his performances in the past, and so yeah, they were the surprises for me. Tom Hanks was a definite. Riz Ahmed and Matthew Rhys. There's a lot of people talking about those performances and how they'd be nominated. And Hugh Laurie is, we've talked about him to death. But so this one's a tough one because of the vote splitting, and it will be something that we'll look back on after Emmy night as a as a gauge for where we have multiple nominees from the same show and can they win, because we saw a lot of that last year, where vote splitting apparently became a factor.
Yeah, I think Tom Hanks actually is kind of at the status, even higher of a status than Tina and Amy, which is why I think he's going to take this.
Right. I think if an SNL person wins, it will be Tom Hanks in this category. But we mentioned in another Slugfest that is SNL going to win 4 acting trophies? I mean, we all kind of think Melissa McCarthy has a good shot. Tom Hanks has a good shot. Kate McKinnon in supporting.
I disagree with supporting actress. I think Kate McKinnon is just going to get herself vote canceled out.
Yeah,
we can talk about that another.
I guess we'll talk about that later. But it could win 4. I guess that's the point.
I think Tom Hanks is going to have his vote canceled out here. I mean,
yeah,
look, the Dave Chappelle episode was one of the highest watched just because there was, like you said, Rob, a lot of mystique around the fact that he had not been on stage in almost a decade, and so there were a lot of people who wanted to.
I think it had the mystique about the election. It was right after the election. And I think that the problem is that he's upstaged at every turn by Kate McKinnon. Okay,
well, if Kate McKinnon submits that episode, then they're going to see Dave Chappelle in it, so Dave Chappelle's going to get some votes. So, I mean, there's that argument to be made. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, I mean, this guy's been on a roll lately, so I think that's what got him in. And I think there's a lot of people who would like to see him give an enthusiastic acceptance speech, not on a televised event, but albeit on stage. So, I mean, I think that there's just, as much as I would agree with you that Tom Hanks is the standout from a performance standpoint, I don't think that I don't think that it's going to be, I think he's going to have some trouble with vote splitting, is what I'm trying to say.
Go ahead.
If this stupid 50% rule, if it didn't exist, Alec Baldwin will be nominated and guest. Would he just easily
we wouldn't even have a slugfest. Yeah, it would just be over.
I think so, but you never know. There's always sometimes everything just goes wrong.
I mean, just like we're talking in generalities and hype, I think it would just make sense that Alec Baldwin would have won that.
When I think of all the love that Saturday Night Live got, it's kind of a shame that not one of the male regular cast members didn't sneak in.
Who would be nominated? Who would you nominate out of the regular cast, though? Like, were any of them a standout? Keenan, perhaps?
Yeah,
Bobby
Moynihan, yeah, because he's left, maybe that would have been a farewell.
I mean, Vanessa Bayer got him
Her
because
farewell, yeah.
I think what this proves to the SAG Awards is you need to change their status to a sketch show instead of a late night show, so they can compete where they belong. So they could be nominated for ensemble.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think Kate McKinnon, she could have got nominated in lead. That's how popular the show is. Like, she could have been a lead nominee. The season,
if she loses, then Lauren Michael probably is going to think I probably should have bumped her up to lead because
maybe. Yeah, that would have helped.
Because she would have had such a great chance of beating Julia Louis-Dreyfus for Veep.
Yeah, I think she absolutely would have beat her. And I think the problem is that Leslie Jones could absolutely take votes away from her.
But we digress.
We've gone off the
I want to say finally, watch what happens when Riz Ahmed wins this. The shit happens in these categories, and then I don't know. We're all going to look like we have no idea.
Does he win 2 Emmys if that happens, or does that mean he's losing to Robert De Niro?
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things, haha. But it does. Really weird stuff happens at the Emmys, and it could be Matthew Rhys as a makeup for not winning for the Americans. It could be anything. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, it's hard.
And his partner in life, who is still Emmyless, Carrie Russell.
Yeah, I know. God help me. I'd love her to win an Emmy. And again, we digress. But I'm just saying that we have to.
Oh, go ahead.
What?
We have to make arguments, obviously, using data and using. We have to argue for things like cogently. The problem is with the Emmys. I say this every year. They just do stuff sometimes that is completely inexplicable. Because if someone can tell me why Merritt Weaver won that Emmy for Nurse Jackie a few years ago, like properly with cogent arguments, then maybe I might actually start sleeping again. Because I'm still just wondering how the hell things like that happen, and it could happen here.
Riz could easily win this, and right when you said that, I'm like, I think I have him too low in my predictions. I need
yeah, me too.
Third, or at least maybe even second, because he has a really, really good storyline. He impregnates Hannah, and he's in almost the whole episode of the season premiere, and he's just such a lovable guy. Everyone loves this guy.
He's really
apparently good. If you play Lena Dunham's love interest, you can be in a Star Wars movie. So that's
Oh yeah,
sign me up.
It's not a bad life.
I think he has a better shot than Matthew Rhys, but Matthew Rhys does show his penis in it, so there's that.
But it was a fake penis, so that's that's the problem. See, he didn't go full method. If he had shown the real penis, I think that we'd be talking Emmys. But seriously, he's in that episode that American Bitch that everyone was talking about. It was like the highlight episode of the season, I guess you could probably say, depending on your perspective. And I'm really surprised and grateful that he got nominated for it, because I remember a few years ago when Patrick Wilson was in a similar episode, like a standalone episode with Hannah, he didn't get nominated. But it just seems that Matthew Rhys was able to go one step further and actually get nominated. So there's arguments even for him. I'm not even thinking about the Americans, and his nominations there. Just thinking about that, he's in a very, very good acclaimed episode of Girls. So really, maybe this category isn't as weak as I thought.
Makes me wonder how close Adam Driver was to getting into supporting actor with all the nominations we saw in the guest category.
Right. Yeah, and he got snubbed last year, which is so crazy because last year was at the height of what was the movie? The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
and I thought for sure he would get in. I think I was actually predicting him to win at one point, and then he got completely snubbed.
Yeah.
But if you guys were voters, you could only pick one winner of these 6. Who would it be?
Hugh Laurie.
Amanda?
I'm going to go with Hugh Laurie because I know he hasn't won. That would tip my vote.
Fair enough. I think I'd go with Riz Ahmed. I really enjoyed his performance in Girls. I thought that was really cool.
And you want to see him win at least one of his 2?
I do, because if he doesn't win for the night of, I'm going to cry.
Better get your Kleenex ready.
I think I would go with Tom Hanks, actually. Just
He was pretty
for
fun.
David S. Pumpkins.
David S. Pumpkins, man. Oh.
That
And
was
he
a
was in the
Halloween
season
costume that was
finale.
so popular. He did come back, yes.
Oh,
He was really good in the Dwayne Johnson episode.
Right.
Yeah, well, there you go. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you go and vote for your you go and put your predictions in at Gold Derby for the Emmys. And stay tuned for more of these videos. We have plenty more coverage to come. Bye.